Hi, everybody. I'm Stephen W. Long. This is The Writing Life. And something I've kind of wanted to say for quite some time is, darn it, I have a lot of fun doing this. And I do because I get to learn things. These are topics I'm interested in, although I don't know a lot about it. And we just have such fun guests, and today certainly is no exception. My guest is Dana Libanoti, award-winning teacher. Nominated for Teacher of the Year, Oregon Teacher of the Year, right,
Yes.
in 2019, and has written a book that we're going to get into. To me, it seems like it must be so challenging. Maybe not the compiling, maybe not the writing as much as the selling, and I don't mean commerce, I mean having it accepted by the people that it was aimed at. So, first, Dana, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So, A Teenager's Guide to Living. Not that it isn't so desperately needed, because we know it is.
Right.
What the first thing I thought when I heard the title was, how is this accepted? Are the kids like, oh, come on, you're an old guy.
Yeah.
I know everything.
In fact, it's kind of ironic. They're the ones who asked me to write it.
Okay.
Because I counsel kids, and I'm kind of a mentor for so many of them.
Right.
That the topics seem to come around and around and around. And so last year, one of my classes said, you need to put all this down on paper.
Okay.
And that's why I started doing it. So then I went to them and said, well, what chapter titles do you want?
Okay.
And they did 90% of the chapter titles.
Now, just to back up a little bit, I want people to know you're both high school and college teacher.
Yeah. Yes.
And you had done a class that you call philosophy, because what else are you going to call it?
We didn't know what to call it.
Right.
So we called it a philosophy class.
So, and is this kind of the genesis? Is that where this came from?
This is very much like the class was.
Okay.
It's not, the class was very much give and take, and the kids were engaged in that kind of thing. So we're hoping that the book will be used in in the classroom. That's kind of the bottom line was, it's a self-help book for kids, but it's also a textbook for teachers.
Okay.
And it's also, there's a parenting class that's using the book.
Oh, good.
For parenting, and so it's kind of hitting a lot of people.
Again, not knowing anything specific about it, my thought was, if this is going to be successful, it will be the parents filtering this or drawing strength from it,
Right.
and then passing it on to the kids. But I think you're saying that the kids will take it on their own.
I can just give you an anecdote. We were having a party for, didn't matter what it was for. And a bunch of my students were at the house, and the adults were kind of in one spot, and the kids were kind of in another.
Sure.
And there were stacks of my books, because I was in the middle of printing beta copies, whatever.
Right, right.
And at one point, there were 6 kids reading the book spontaneously,
Right.
without any encouragement from me. And so we got a nice little picture of it. But
Oh, good.
yeah,
I'm glad.
Yeah, and I think, I think it's hard. One of the concepts is, are you going to get teenagers to read a self-help book? And probably not.
Yeah.
But if it's encouraged by teachers and it's encouraged by parents, I think you hit the nail on the head. And then once they get into the book,
Well, that's to crack it open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They realize that this has some information that they want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've said this on this show before, that I know I have a negative perception of particularly high school age kids, but maybe a little bit older. And it's not, man, I don't want to have that, but I don't have close contact with that age group.
Right.
And I think that the society has shifted so much. Is it just that I'm old, or is it a reality that this is a very different kind of a world than I grew up in?
It always, new things affect the environment of the classroom. But the last 10 years have been striking. Um, it, it's pretty universal from kindergarten through college
Sure.
that this has become way more challenging. And a lot of it is tied into technology.
Of course.
Cell phones, social media, video games. And the research is not pleasant. It's not
Right.
telling us that this is good stuff for the kids. We have an all-time high teenage depression,
Yes.
all-time high teenage anxiety, and all-time high teenage suicides. And so that tells us something,
Sure.
right?
I know one of the topics in this, I don't know if it's a chapter
Yeah.
title, is relationships.
Right.
And again, when I just was kind of scanning down, excuse me, and I read that, it reminds me of a conversation I had with a young woman who was kind of mid-20s. And her brother was late teens. He had an error, I think, on his cell phone bill. And she said, well, call him up and talk to him. Oh, I can't do that. Because I think his social skills were
Right.
through texting
Right.
or maybe some other social media.
Right. And sorry to interrupt.
No,
but
go ahead.
The research also says that teenagers are having trouble establishing meaningful relationships. And that's just it. They're doing this.
Right.
And even though, the old research said talking on a telephone only gives you 30% of communication because you don't get facial expression,
Right.
body language, inflection as much as you would in front of a person. And so they're even a step back now.
Of
They're not
course.
even talking to each other.
Right.
They're texting each other. So
Right.
a lot of the communication is lost. They don't know how to talk to each other.
I think that's absolutely true. I love the words that she used when she was talking to me. She said he doesn't know the difference between aggression and assertion.
Right.
And his words to her were, well, they'll think I'm mad. And
Right.
so how do you present your case if you don't know how to talk to somebody?
Right. And that's what the book's for.
Yeah.
It's giving the kids, and the chapters are very short, they're conversational, and you can find out really quickly how to resolve conflict, how to deal with friendships,
Right.
how to deal with romance. There are all kinds, there's 30 some chapters, and the kids develop those chapters because it's what they want to
Right.
learn.
Right.
And so yes, this is a way for them to get what they're not getting, unfortunately at home and in the classroom as well.
Here, I keep thinking of this generational thing, but great to get it in school if you can. But man, isn't that or wasn't that the job of the parents?
It was, and
are they working?
I think, boy, the dynamics involved
Sure.
in parenting over the last 30 or 40 years would take hours to discuss.
Mhm.
But needless to say, one of the pieces of research says that if a high school student, eats dinner with their family 3 days a week, they're going to be more successful, more content, more successful. And in that philosophy class, I asked, how many of you kids, there were 28 of them, how many of you kids eat meals 3 days a week with your family? 6 out of 28. So, you're looking at a family dynamic that is different than when we grew up, and that's part of the issue for sure. And then education, they're so restricted on what they can do. They have to do state testing. They have to, worry about graduation rates, and so teachers are teaching to tests, and there's all kinds of problems in public school. I'm part of that problem because I teach in public school. And so that's what this is for. I don't blame public education, and I don't blame public educators. For the most part, they're great people.
Mm-hmm.
They just
Oh, I think you'd have to be, or you'd go somewhere else.
Oh yeah, because you can make way more money somewhere
Sure.
else for a lot less stress.
I was going
So
to say a lot
yeah,
easier.
yeah. So I think yeah, it's education. It's the schools. It's people's families, you know, and that's just what it is.
When I talked about working, and I'm just parroting things that I've heard, but that because of wages now, it sort of takes a two-income household,
Absolutely.
and so that changes the dynamics. Typically, mom was home, and you come home, and she's got,
Yeah.
if not milk and cookies, then
Yeah, that was our life. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Um, that's not what's happening now. I mean, kids go home and they're on their own a lot. Um, the dynamic completely has changed.
Yeah.
The addition of technology has just really made it a challenge.
Yeah.
It's been the last 10 years. The classroom is dynamically different. So
I think
I don't think that's you or your generation or whatever saying kids have changed. No, kids have changed.
Yeah.
They have.
This is a fun, maybe fun, uh, little bit of trivia that I heard, that in the 1950s, in the middle 50s, a survey was done among teachers asking them to rank their most serious behavioral problems. Number one, I believe, was chewing gum, and number two was talking in line. And oh my God, wouldn't
Try to teach in a classroom with 30 kids with cell phones.
now would you be allowed to take those away?
Well, it depends. Yes and no. I mean, every school has a policy. I think it was David Douglas High School who just said, "We're done with
That's
cell
it. That's it. Yeah.
And remarkably, they took 2 weeks of complete and utter hell from parents and students when they banned cell phones. And then things calmed down, and then they found out that truancy went down, attendance went up.
Really?
Um,
I wouldn't have anticipated that particular
Yeah,
outcome.
but to make that kind of a blanket statement at a
Yeah.
school comes with a price, right? And in our school, we have our policy. Every high school has policies on cell phones.
Yeah.
But the kids, they'll they'll be looking at you and texting
Sure.
under the desk so you can't see it.
Yeah.
And it's not like we don't know that's going on because we
Right.
do.
Sure.
But
Well, and I suppose that's the modern equivalent of passing notes, or
right.
I literally remember an incident when I was a freshman in high school. A fella had his, history book up or something,
Yeah.
and the teacher came, and of course there was a Playboy behind that. So, but that's,
Well-
I guess that's old school.
That is that is old school, but funny still.
Yeah. Another change, and this is not a value judgment, I'm going to try this out on you and see if you
Yeah.
agree, is when I went to school, culturally we were homogenous. Pretty much everybody was like me, ethnically, financially,
Right.
and
Yeah.
so on. And I wonder if that didn't make it easier. You can't change it, and again, I'm not saying it's good, bad,
Yeah.
or anything else, but
I think that presents a whole set of other problems when you have one specific look to everybody.
sure,
I think diversity
it's limiting.
Right, and diversity is where we need to be, and we need to be able to appreciate everybody from, where they come from. I mean, yeah, I'm much happier with that. I'm much happier with women being able to do whatever they want
Sure,
and getting paid for it.
sure.
I'm a hockey fan, and so I was watching it today that they're training women to be hockey referees, and something that wouldn't have happened 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I think diversity is really important, and we did grow up.
And it's enriching.
Oh, absolutely.
That's,
Go to another country.
yeah.
You'll find out how enriching that is.
I know people, you probably do too, who pick out the differences, and again, the gender, the orientation,
Yeah.
the ethnicity, whatever it is, and don't like it. And I'm thinking, what are you missing? You know, if you can embrace that.
Well, it's based on fear in most cases.
Absolutely.
And, you know, we talk about that in the book as well. Fear is debilitating, it's crippling.
Mm-hmm.
And when you when you base your opinions on fear, you're immobile. You're not going to. You're an immovable object.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's savvy to get past that fear and show people that, you know, this is not scary.
Yeah.
Right.
Talk a little bit about kids' relationships, and I'm thinking high school,
Mm-hmm.
and then let me preface that by saying my oldest granddaughter recently married.
Yeah.
She doesn't live in the area,
Mm-hmm.
but my understanding, and we're reasonably close,
Mm-hmm.
is that she didn't date till she got married.
Right.
And so, not that there weren't group activities and so on. Again, it would be hard for me to judge that. It would sure be different than I was used to.
Yeah, I think there's chapters on romantic relationships in the book, and there's a chapter on marriage.
Okay.
There's, I think the statistics that are out there, you can look them up yourselves, but on, you know, what percentage of the population are virgins when they get married, how successful are the marriages compared to other marriages, and do you allow your children to date, not date, is a parental call,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I think when people are 18, 19, 20, they should be making their own choices about
Yeah.
about those kinds of things. And but you know, romantic relationships, nobody knows what it's like to live with somebody 24/7. The closest thing that they get is a roommate in college.
Sure.
And the statistics on roommates in college lasting more than a year is not good. And so these kids are getting that experience a little bit, but then you try
Right.
to throw in, you know, taking the kids to piano lessons and going to the grocery store
Right.
and sex and all of the other things that go with a typical marriage. It's incredibly challenging. And they don't know. They don't have any experience with it. When you talk to kids
Yes.
about it, they're shocked and amazed.
I'm glad you brought up sex because it was on my mind
Yeah.
in relation to this and the digital access.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've read recently that kids have access to pornography
Yeah.
awfully young, which colors their view of what that world is.
Yeah.
And it's an unrealistic world. And so now where do you go? Is there, and I don't know that there's statistics on this, but I wonder if there's a growing dissatisfaction that my life isn't like the life on the screen.
Well, I mean, that's been the age-old problem with models and, you know, and poor girls trying to, you know, look like the people
Sure.
who are, you know, the one in a
And
million.
you know what? The people who look like that don't look like that.
No, and it's airbrushed.
That's
and,
right.
And Photoshop. Yeah, and I just think that any of that is problematic, right? And the chapter on sex is very down to earth and factual, and you take out of it what you want,
Sure.
right? It's not. I'm not trying to tell people to have sex or not have sex, but here's the information.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you should know this. You should know that. I recently was on a plane. The girl sitting next to me was watching me type my book, and she asked, what are you doing? So I told her. And she was 20, maybe, 19,
Right.
20. And I said, well, here's the thing. What is it that high school didn't teach you that you needed to know now that you're out
Right.
working in the world? And she said, everything.
Sure.
And so that's why this book is important. And again, I did this for the kids as much as it was for me, because it was very cathartic to write it. But this is for kids. This is to help them.
Well, I think too, when you have knowledge or expertise or something, you want to share that.
Right.
That's kind of, and you know, given your profession and so on, you would more than maybe most. But it's not, I don't think it's look at me, I know more than you do. It's, guys, I can help you avoid some pain.
Right, and that's what this is about. And
Yeah.
in that class of 28 people, I asked them, how many of you can talk to your parents
Right.
about anything? And it was 4 people out of 28. So-
That's dismal,
Yeah.
but it's something. I thought you were going to say none.
Yeah, I mean, there are always some great parents out there who keep an open door and an
Yeah.
open mind. And the fact of the matter is, then the question became, well, who are you talking to?
Well, each other, I
Right.
suppose.
It's always
And they don't know anything anyway.
No. So you're getting your information from other people who have no information. And so it's important that they establish relationships with adults that they trust
Yeah.
and that they can say anything to.
I was going to say I thought this early on when we started talking. You apparently have earned their trust. They trust you,
Absolutely.
or this wouldn't work.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me say, in relation to romance, let's use that word. But it's really broader than that. I just finished a book, or a little bit ago, and it was Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. And one of the little blurbs in there, a little topic, was happiness. And he said that happiness is really tied to expectation more than objective reality. And so if you don't expect, and he was talking about hunter-gatherers or even medieval people, change your clothes every 6 months,
Yeah.
take a bath, bathe once a year, never enough to eat, constant anxiety, are we going to be invaded or something?
Right, of course.
And how do you measure this? I don't know. But his feeling was that those people were happier than we are, because we have such high expectations that are often unfulfilled.
I'm sorry I interrupted
No,
you.
that's fine.
You look at indigenous cultures.
Sure.
They're basically content.
Yeah.
Their lives are very simple, but they all have roles in the community, and they're all content. They're smiling, and we're stressed out. And, it is true. I mean, my wife and I swam with the dolphins for a week.
Okay.
And at the end, I asked the person in charge, I said, how can I take this home with me?
Right.
Because I knew when I got home, I was just going to be stressed out again. And he said, you have to remember every day what it feels like to be a 7-year-old.
Good.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah.
I had the opportunity to go to the Squaw Valley Writers Conference, and I actually went a couple of times. And it's a long conference. It's from a Saturday to the following Sunday. But there's a break, and it's pretty intense. But there's a break in the middle on a Wednesday, and in the evening there's a talent show. Well, 2 of the presenters, Caucasian and a black fellow, got together, wrote a song, and performed it. And it was White Man's Blues. And the White Man's Blues, I remember one of the causes of consternation was the Mercedes is in the shop, so I have to drive the Lexus. And so there's that expectation. We have so much available.
Right.
And
we don't appreciate it.
And you don't appreciate it.
No, you take it for granted.
And I think the other thing is there's some kind of a feeling of never enough. It doesn't matter how much you have, it's just not enough.
Yeah, and you talked about expectation, and I talk about that in the book. It's a trap. Because the expectation creates in you a desire. And when the desire is fulfilled, it's temporarily enjoyable, but then you realize that it's just a thing. It's just something. And if it's not fulfilled, desire continues to cause you frustration. And so, a lot of self-help books written out there, but my feeling with expectation and desire is that it's a trap. So try to avoid it,
Mm-hmm.
which is one of the things I talk about in the book.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just be realistic and be honest.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how you convey that. Objectivity, maybe, or perspective, maybe that's a
I
better
think it's
word.
perspective. I mean, I talked to a man who had cancer. I had cancer, and he was saying that he had been given a year to live, and it's now year 4.
Yeah,
So he was, and I said, well, what piece of advice would you give people? And he goes, live today.
sure.
Quit saving money for that boat, you know, and then in 4 years when you're driving down to the boat store, somebody hits you,
Right.
and it's all worthless. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, all of that stuff is in the book, and that's stuff we don't talk about in
Yeah.
high school, for sure.
Something I want to talk about. I'm watching our clock here,
Oh, okay.
and this is Caroline. This is the goofiest clock. I think we started in the wrong place, but
That is really interesting.
yeah. But I think I've got it figured out. In any event, I think we're about to run out of time.
Okay.
Oh, really? Okay. And but what I wanted to bring up before it's too late is your music.
Yeah.
So you are a musician,
Right.
and it seems to me that has got to leak into your relationship with the kids.
Yeah.
Everybody,
Right.
music is so important to us. Can you comment on that?
Well, I think it's really easy to see that the drama teachers, the
Okay.
music teachers at schools have a different relationship with kids because
Ah,
we are in the performing arts, and so we have a communication and a relationship with the kids that many other teachers are not fortunate enough to get, you know,
Okay.
teaching math. So and it's a dynamic of trust, right? To
Yeah.
get them to perform at certain levels, they have to trust you. You have to trust them. And yes, I think that's where it's all about relationships, all of it, right? And if one kid goes into music, great, but the rest of those kids aren't. They need to have skills to take with them out of the music classes for life.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always said I teach life through music,
Okay.
right?
Now, before we started, I asked you, and then we didn't get a chance to
Yeah.
go through with it. What is your, what subjects do you normally teach? We talked about the philosophy.
Yeah, I mean,
Is it music?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
a music teacher.
Okay.
I teach the jazz choirs at the high school and the advanced placement music theory, and at Linfield.
Robin Peterson?
Robin is my colleague, right?
Okay, all
Absolutely.
right. Now we're getting
Robin teaches the symphonic groups,
Okay,
and I teach the jazz groups.
okay.
So Robin and I have worked together for, I don't know, like 11 years now. And she gets the same, you know, she has the relationships with kids just like a good music teacher would.
Sure.
And, so I teach that. I've taught at the college everything from theory to form and analysis to understanding music for non-musicians,
Okay,
music appreciation, but it's all music,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask you a music question. This is going to be really off base.
Okay, great.
I love what I think is jazz. But when I think of jazz that I like, it's Ella Fitzgerald.
Yeah,
What I don't care for is what I think is called progressive jazz.
yeah. It's free jazz or progressive
Okay.
jazz.
It sounds like,
It's
nobody's
noise.
playing the same song.
No, it's noise.
So, thank you.
It's noise.
Thank you for
I mean,
that.
even coming from a musician, it's a very slim part of the public that can appreciate that.
Okay.
Very, very small. And that all evolved out of jazz becoming too organized and not as spontaneous as it needed to be. Jazz was spontaneous in the beginning.
This
in
is
the
a
early days.
rebellion?
And it was.
Okay.
It grew out of the fact that big band was the ultimate in organized music.
Sure.
And we lost all the spontaneity other
Okay.
than somebody taking a solo. But yeah, and then the smaller groups got together and said, we want to go back to our roots.
Okay.
And then it went too far
Yeah.
with the jazz where we're just, yeah, we're going to be completely non-organized.
Yeah.
And it's hard to take, especially for people who are non-musicians. Musicians have trouble taking it. But
Yeah, and I've heard people play not that form, but I heard a fellow who hits the most notes on a guitar, and I suppose that you can appreciate that they can do it.
right,
It's not enjoyable.
it's not interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, Count Basie played 2 notes for a piano solo. Blink, blink, and everybody's like, wow.
Yeah.
Because he's saying something with his solos.
Yeah.
Guys that are flying around their instrument for the Kenny G's of the world, he's super talented.
Yeah.
But all he does is play scales and arpeggios as fast as he can.
Right.
And the general public is amazed and, oh my gosh, he can
Yeah.
do. The rest of the musicians are like, come on, say something with your solos,
Okay.
right? So, yeah, I mean, with any subject, I'm sure there's that element of it. With musicians, that free jazz stuff, I appreciate those musicians, but there's no way I'm going to listen to it.
So we're getting far afield, if that's okay with
Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
Can you define jazz?
Jazz is, I mean, early jazz was a very spontaneous medium,
Okay.
and it was what we consider now the Dixieland music,
Okay.
right? With the clarinet
Right.
soloing high, the
Yeah.
trombone soloing low, and the trumpet playing the melody, and then that's what jazz was. And so, and there was an improvisational element to it. Clarinet's improvising, the trombone's improvising below, and then everybody got a turn
Right.
improvising.
Okay.
So, yeah. So we've lost a lot of that. It was taught by word of mouth, by sitting next to somebody
Yeah.
playing it, and now you can get a doctorate degree in jazz,
Okay.
which a lot of the old musicians are like, really?
Yeah.
That's so totally not what jazz was about,
Okay.
right?
Well, Dana, we covered a
done.
lot of ground. I think we may have to come back and do this again.
All right, anytime.
Thank you
Happy
so
to do
much.
it. Yeah.
And we've got more to talk about.
Yeah, great. It was great to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for
Yeah.
having me. I
All
appreciate
right.
it. Yeah.
Folks, there you go. You never know what you're going to get. I'm Stephen W. Long. This is The Writing Life. My website is stephenwlong.com. We've got some poetry and short stories and things there. And just come back next time and we'll do something else. All right. Thanks,
Great.
Dana.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
What do you think? We done?
I don't know, you guys wanna do one
Yeah,
just
I
with
think
yourself
as
without
long
me
as
doing
they
the
think we're
bongos?
done, if
No,
they got
no.
enough, they got enough.
They got enough? Problem? Okay, sounds good.
Let's go lunch.
Oh.
I'm hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could use a bite too.